wonder whether we should be clapping or weeping. What do you think? Should we be clapping or weeping? Praise the name of the Lord. This is our story. I hope that this story will change. I want us all to rise for a moment and let's pray for this country. And I want you to pray the prayer like this. I woke up from my sleep this morning with a song. I don't even know the song myself, but it says, I give myself to you, or I give my life to you. I don't know what it's saying. If this country is going to change, it's not going to change from Abuja or from Sokoto. It's going to change from us, me. So I want you to ask God to make you an agent of change for this country. Just pray for yourself for a minute. Say, Lord, use me. Make me an agent of change over this land. In my own corner, make me an agent of change. Make me an agent of change. Please help me. In my place of work, in my business, in my home, on my street, in my town, for my community, make me an agent of change. Make me an agent of change. Thank you, our Father. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Dear Lord, this morning we are asking, if you are going to bring change to this land, it's going to start one man at a time, one woman at a time. Father, use us, even in this assembly, as agents of change. As we look into your word again this morning, we are asking, speak to our hearts, open the eyes of our understanding, let your name be glorified. Thank you, my Father. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen. God bless you. Please be seated. Thank you very much, choir. You may go back to your seats. I want to speak briefly this morning on a subject I've titled, The Search for One Man. One man here can mean man or woman. Alright? The search for one man. As you well know, our theme for this month is Nation Builders. And we're looking at Nehemiah as an example of a nation builder. And, I got thinking and saying to myself, if you look through history, it dawned on me, if you look through history, both biblical and contemporary, what you find is that anytime God was going to do something, anytime God was going to affect or influence or impact a nation, he never looked for people. He always looked for how many? One. And usually that one person was disadvantaged vis-a-vis the change that God wanted to bring about. But so long as that one person was willing to be used of God, we all today look back and we celebrate what God did. So I want us to very briefly look at scriptures, look at contemporary history, and then you ask yourself a question, a very simple question: can I be the one man that God is looking for to bring change in our times? Our story this month is centered on a character, Bible character by name Nehemiah. Let's read Nehemiah chapter 1 and verse 1 to 4. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah. And it came to pass in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan, the palace, that Hanani, one of my brethren, came. he and certain men of Judah. And I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard this word, that I sat down and wept and mourned certain days, and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Let's stop there. The first thing that strikes you here is that the people who were affected, you know, Jeremiah, look at it like this. Jeremiah is in Abuja, all right? I mean, Nehemiah is in Abuja. And then he's asking his brother, what is the state of affairs in Meduguri? Okay? Those ones that Boko Haram did not kill, how are they faring? Yeah? And the guy says things are hard. GSM is not working. There's no food, there's no water, there's nothing. And then Jeremiah was provoked by the news, and he began to weep and to pray. And I asked myself, but the people in Meduguri themselves, how are they feeling about the state of affairs? It is like you and I in Nigeria. We've just seen Nigeria. I'm sure you saw yourself in some of those characters. I won't ask you which one you were. Let's leave that. I'm sure you saw yourself, yes? Now, we that are in this Nigeria where the walls are broken down, how are we feeling about it? Are we expecting the Nigerian to come from America and solve our problems for us? Or are we the ones that are going to go to God in prayer and say, Lord, do something about this situation? And change started for the Jews when one man, and that's the point I want to drive home this morning. It was one man that brought about change over the entire nation of Jerusalem. One man. One man that was not afraid for his own comfort. You know, Nehemiah was comfortable where he was. Yes or no? He was. He was the private secretary or the personal assistant to the king. You know, when you walk, I remember there was a day that the GO came to visit us here. You know that? Yes, of course, we gave Daddy an honorarium. That is expected. But guess what? His driver too had many envelopes. Did you hear me? His driver. I'm sure that the GO's driver, if he wants to, his child can attend any school in this world. Yes or no? So Nehemiah was comfortable where he was. He did not have any care. What shall I eat? What shall I drink? Where shall I be clothed? He was well taken care of. But yet still, that his own people, and by inference, God was being, ridiculed by poverty and what have you. Nehemiah said, no, I cannot stay here and pretend that all is well. Nehemiah got up and he did something about the situation. If you look around, we have become very comfortable. Once I've been able to get a small place for myself, been able to dig a borehole, and I can arrange my street. We have OPC at the gate. Is that not so? And if God helps me, London is not too far. Hello? Really, for all I care, the rest of you can go to places. That is Nigeria. Most of us have visas 10 years. UK, US. You know what I mean? You know, and it's almost like, you know, we're all in this sea, drowning. The moment you are able to shoot out your head, say, thank God, see you. That's the black man's problem. America is on shutdown. Some fellow brought his lawnmower from one end of America and went to some place in Washington and was mowing the lawns for free. Why? Because he said, no, I can't allow the grass in this place grow. It will embarrass America. In Nigeria, people are given money to buy the lawnmower. They will eat the money and buy cutlass. Let's look at Moses. Exodus chapter 3. From verse 10 to 13. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? Brethren, I want to establish a point this morning, that God can use you, as you are here seated, to bring about change. If not in Nigeria, maybe in your place of work, maybe on your street, maybe in your house, maybe in your department. God can use you to say no. In this department, no more. God can use you. Moses said, me, go to Egypt and talk to Pharaoh. Excuse me? Have you forgotten my history? You know that if not for the grace of God, I would have been dead 40 years ago. Is it now that I have a wife, I have children, I'm doing well, that I will risk all of that for the Jews that were asking me, who sent you? Moses had good reason not to go. But he went. And we know how the story ended. Let's move away from the Bible and let's come to contemporary history. Some of us here who are workers, we had a training in January from the Institute of National Transformation, INT. And in the course of the training, we saw a film. How many of you remember that film? William Wilberforce. Who was Wilberforce? He was a rich British member of the parliament who got born again. And as a result of getting born again, he took it upon himself to fight slavery, to ensure that slavery will end. I watched the film again in my office last week, and I came to tears. Because when you watch that film, William Wilberforce had nothing to gain. But he said no. Now, listen, if you follow that film, there's something I want to read here. You know, one of his mentors, talking about mentoring, was John Newton. John Newton used to be a slave ship owner who got born again, repented. He wrote Amazing Grace. John Newton was one of the people that God used to inspire Wilberforce to continue the fight. Hear what Newton said to Wilberforce at one time. He said, God has raised you up for the good of the church and for the good of the nation. Maintain your friendship with Pitt. Pitt was the prime minister. Continue in parliament. Who knows that but for such a time as this, God has brought you into the public life and has a purpose for you. Who knows whether it was for such a time as this that God has allowed you to be the MD, the chairman, the team leader, the team head, the class teacher, the principal, the vice principal in charge of admin, the proprietress of the school, the proprietor of the school, the shop owner. Maybe God wants you to make a statement That whereas when you go to other places and you buy beans, you know, they would have knocked in the bottom of the, so that when you pour the beans, it is full, yes or no? But when you get home and you measure, it is not so. But maybe God has brought you to say, no, in this particular shop, we will measure our beans with the right measure. It's time for hampers again. You know how many times you bought hampers and you cost the hamper seller? Yes or no? It looked huge. In fact, you thought you had a deal. Is that not so? Say, you mean this big hamper for 5,000 naira only? Say, madam, you know now, it's because it's you. And then you get home and it's cardboard. Maybe God has raised you up at this time to sell hampers and to give a right measure. John Newton said to Wilberforce, don't give up. Wilberforce fought that battle for 20 years. For 20 years. And you ask yourself, what was in it for him? Wilberforce was available for God to use. So God equipped him and used him. I am convinced that if God has ever had a challenge in life, it is that he seeks for a man. A man, just one. When I say man, remember, I'm talking about the human race, not male or female now. So it can be male, it can be female. God is looking for a man who will say to him, here I am. A man who would look beyond his own comfort. A man who will look beyond his own pleasure. A man who will recognize that true life is not in the abundance of your possessions. Rather, it is in how much you give of what God has given to you. Another woman comes to mind. Somebody else comes to mind. How many of you have heard of Rosa Parks? She was an ordinary person just like you and I. And she lived in America at a time when there were laws. This part of the church, only whites can sit. Up there, blacks can sit. They said, bosses, this boss, if you are black, you sit at this end. If you are white, you sit at this end. And one day, Rosa Parks sat at the point where whites normally sit. And they asked her to get up. And she said, no, I will not get up. Now, at that point, she could have been beaten to death. Hello? Rosa Parks could have been sentenced. Rosa Parks could have been, anything could have happened to her. But she forgot about herself. And said, God did not make us black or white. He made us male and female. He made us equal. And so Rosa Parks did not get up. And that defiance gave birth to the civil rights movement, gave birth to I Have a Dream, gave birth ultimately to President Obama. One woman. One woman. How many of you have heard of Mahatma Gandhi? He was a lawyer. Trained in India. Got a job in South Africa. On his train ride to Durban, they told him, you are colored. You cannot sit in this carriage. This is for the whites. And Mahatma Gandhi, from that day on, started the non-violence as a pressure point. Because of him, the Indians in South Africa got a better deal. He went back to India, continued the same fight, without raising his hand one day to slap a British soldier or a British citizen. India got his independence. They got it because one man decided to risk everything against injustice. Recently, you must have been hearing of Malala, the 16-year-old girl who has been declared the boldest girl in the world. Now, let us, and this is very important to us as Nigerians, because even the Nigerian Christian lives by sight. Now, let's go to this girl's story. What was her story? She comes from one of the most impoverished parts of the world. They call it the Swat Valley, somewhere in Pakistan. You know, if you ask me, I have a feeling that hell is somewhere between Pakistan and Afghanistan. You know, somewhere between those two, because the kind of things they do there, I don't know how. I mean, you know, it's like the devil he has occupied that portion. And this young girl woke up in the morning and said, you know what, to hell with all this, you know, their own Boko. What's their name? Boko Haram called? What? No, Al-Qaeda is not their name. They what? Taliban, yes. Their own Boko Haram. You know, part of their doctrine is that women should not go to school. This young girl, at the risk of her own life, said no. Not only will young girls not only will I as a girl go to school, I will encourage more young girls to go to school. And then what happened? One day the Taliban said, how dare you? And so they shot her. She was supposed to die, but God said no. You know why? Shall I tell you why? Luke chapter 17, verse 33. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall do what? Shall lose it. And whosoever shall lose his life shall do what? Shall preserve it. This is the problem of Nigeria. Nobody wants to lose his life. Nobody. Unfortunately, not even our president. I hate to say this. You know, when somebody is selfless, you will know. You don't need what do you call them? Special advisor media. No. To tell us that you are selfless. We would know. That's the challenge that we face as a country. Nobody wants to die for Nigeria. You know, if God had come and said, okay, I'm looking for somebody, if you risk your life, I will make sure you don't die, and then I will catapult you to England, your whole family. You will go to England, you will be living in Birmingham, I will give you free education, everything. Then I will make sure you win an award, 67 million euros or thousand euros. And then from there, I will make you go to the United Nations. From there, I will make you have a meeting with Obama. Nigerians will queue up and say, Lord, tell them shoot my hand off. Do you know? Oh, we will. Oh, yes. In fact, some of us will coach our children to take the bullet. Say, because God has said you will not die. Don't worry, the bullet will hit you, it will come out of this place, but they will treat you, they will give. If they said now, remove one eye, take visa to London, some people will queue up. Oh, yes. Nigerians will queue up. Say, remove one eye, we sell one eye, you get a visa. You say, after all, with two eyes, I'm suffering here. We have a problem, brethren. Selfishness has driven us to the very edges of human existence. So we are not like animals. God forgive me. You know, animals, their only instinct is survival. You know, that's their only instinct. And that has become the very base instinct of the average Nigerian. Survival. And because of that, many of us have never raised up our heads and look and say, you know what? There could be a better tomorrow if I can just take a stand. Imagine if Mary Slessor had not come. Some of you here would have been killed because you made the mistake of being a twin. Let me ask a question, simple question. Who do you think has replaced Gani Faweme? Eh? Festus Keyamo. Ah? Not Festus. Not Festus Keyamo. Ah, why? It's fight for the masses. Okay, have a falano. That's why I'm telling you that if we had a selfless leader, you don't need a media assistant to tell us. We would know. Revelation chapter 12 verse 11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Why do you sit in that office where they are sharing money? Because you are afraid. You are afraid that if you speak, they may sack you. Because you think that your means of livelihood comes from them. Why did you do it? Everybody is doing it. You can't survive this business. If you would give the right measure, he's just starting, don't worry. 6 months, come and check him. He would have joined us. We are so afraid. And we have become, it's like fear has reduced all of us, such that the rich man and the poor man, nobody can sleep with their 2 eyes closed. Nobody even wants to, when you talk about paying the price for who? Me, God forbid. Brethren, do you know that if not for Mandela, South Africa will be like Rwanda and Burundi today. One man, Mandela. One man. And that has been the bane of our nation. We have had leaders who were just as hungry as the next man. We have not yet had a leader for whom the interest, the common good, was his motivation. Never. It has always been, you can tell. You put somebody there, he's from Edo State, the next thing you know, Osage is getting a job there, Idehe is getting a job there, Osareme is getting a job there. Put an Igbo man and his Nnamdi, and Nkechi. Put a Yoruba man and his Toyin, and Tosin, and Shegun. He said, you better be wise. You Kati, you are a fool. How can you employ an Igbo man? How can you employ a Yoruba man? You better put your people there. And so if you add the equation of Nigeria, we are less than one. We have devalued ourselves. And I don't want you to look too far away. Say, don't mind them in Abuja. No, I'm talking about you. It's not about Abuja. No, leave them alone. Do you know that if redeemed members alone, in fact, if workers in the redeemed Christian Church of God alone, if ordained ministers from deacon and above in redeemed alone were to stand for the truth, this country would change. At least the southern part of this country. I can't speak for the north. There is no office you will go, brethren, where you will not find a deacon, a deaconess, an assistant pastor, a full pastor, a provincial pastor, a zonal pastor, in one office or the other. Yet, there is hardly little or any difference between us and them. Sometimes I wonder how God's heart feels towards us as a people. I wonder how God looks at us and he says to himself, I've made so much investment. You don't know what we're enjoying here is until you go out and you hear people ask questions that children don't ask in Sunday school here. You hear adults ask you, questions that, what we learned when we're in teens church. There are some people that are bishops, they don't know it in other parts of the world. But God has been so gracious to us, he has opened his heart to us. And we have taken of him and we have rubbished it. I want to challenge you Like I said, this is not about Abuja. Maybe one day we'll have a chance to speak to the politicians. Until then, you are the ones I have the opportunity to speak with. So I'm challenging you. Go back tomorrow morning and go and look at your business and ask yourself, of a truth, can God be glorified with what I'm doing? The Bible says, ye are the salt of the earth. It said, will a man light a candle and put it under the bushel? Do you know that even in this church, as I look around, I see different sectors, I see different industries, and I see many of you here, God has placed you in strategic positions. My challenge to you is, what are you doing with that placement? They've made you a HOD. That your department before you came was rotten. Now that you have come, can we sing a new song in that department? You run your own business, MD CEO. You tell your staff, if you bring in a job, you get a commission. They bring in jobs, you swallow the commission. You tell them all of us have to tighten our belts to make sure that our business will not go under. And they are all tightening their belts. And when it's time for summer, you dip your hand into the purse, you don't pay salary, you go to London. And then you gather them together on Monday, let us pray. They will curse your God. They will curse him. You say, God forbid, wicked woman, wicked man. You tell them there's no money. And they see you spending with reckless abandon. And the staff will come to you and say, please ma, they want to drive me out of the house. My house rent is 50,000. You say you have no money. Yet the accountant, you know they will talk. Accountant will say, a check came in yesterday. 3 million naira. But you know, a guy is traveling tomorrow. And you know, madam has gone already. And the children are here, they are there. They will say, Kai! And the man cannot give me 30,000 naira. God day. Brethren, let us stop playing church. Joshua said, choose this day whom you will serve. If the Lord be God, then let us serve him. I would love to be a billionaire. But if the alternative is to salvage or to mortgage my soul, then I will not want to be a billionaire. At some point, you've got to make up your mind where you stand. One thing I have come to realize is this. Anyone who stands for the truth, even if you're not a born-again Christian, God will defend you. Malala is a Muslim. Do you know? But God saw that she was doing a good work, so he sent his angels. It was, you know the news, it was a coincidence. At the time she was hit, a British doctor had come for some work. How many doctors have access to the president? But this doctor had access. This doctor happened to have heard about the girl. This doctor pressured the Pakistani authorities and they moved the girl. Do you know how many people have died before that girl? But because her life was of consequence, there's a preacher I listen to every Sunday morning. He told a story this morning of a goat when they were growing up. He said the goat was owned by the witch doctor. So nobody dared to touch that goat. He said, so when the goat enters your farmland, you can only pray that the goat will not stay to eat. Are you getting it? He said, but it was an ordinary goat. But because of the owner of the goat, nobody dared to touch the goat. He then said something that if you are precious in the sight of God, God will ensure that you will not die the death of a chicken. Do you know that there were people when Mandela was fighting for the blacks that would have said, Mandela, you will die, you will die. You know they are dead now, buried and forgotten. And Mandela is in his 90s and is still breathing, whether it's on life support or otherwise. But how many of those people live to be 70? How many clocked 50? How many made it to be 30? But the man who dared death in the face, I'm sure he's even praying and let death come. And the cowards who thought that to side with the white man was a quick way, they have been long gone, buried and forgotten. There are many cowards in this room who, because of your next meal, you have sold your birthright. Guess what? If you are not careful, that meal that you are hoping to come will not even come. And those who have stood for the truth that you thought were finished, God will lift them up. And you will say to yourself, I'm challenging you this morning. When we say nation builders, you might say, me, nation. In your house where you live, go and become a nation builder. Go and do the right thing. The next time you are driving and the red light says stop, stop. Don't beat the traffic light. The next time you go out somewhere and there's a queue, join the queue. One day I traveled. I was coming back from London. And one of my, let me not call names, one of my elders from Benin, a very strong man, the man that competes with our king, we were together at the airport. And all of us are like normal human beings, you know. Everybody was carrying their bag, they were shopping, doing everything. And then we landed in Nigeria. The moment we landed, inside the plane, welcome sir, welcome sir. One person carried one bag. And if possible, one would have carried one leg. But you know that man would have done a lot to mentor people like us if he had told them, no, don't worry, I'll take my time. Beloved, God is looking for one man. Just one man. I want to end this meeting. I want to sing, not sing, I don't know how to sing. I want to read the words of an old Christian song. It says, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Light that shines is the light of love. Hides the darkness from above. Shines on me and it shines on you. Shows you what the power of love can do. Shine my light both bright and clear. Shine my light both far and near. In every dark corner that I find, let my little light shine. There are dark corners around you, your place of work, your home. I want to ask you today that as you go out, make up your mind and say, Lord, let this light shine. It might cost me something, yes, but I will let it shine all the same. And as you do that, what you would find is that, you know, God will take his own big light. He will add it to your little light, and suddenly you begin to make an impact in your own corner of the world. I'm not bothered with them in Abuja. They're not here. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to myself. I'm challenging you. I'm challenging me. As I'm talking to you, I'm asking myself questions. Questions of, I hope you are hearing yourself. As I'm talking to you, I'm reviewing what I do in the office Monday to Friday, how I relate to my staff, what I do in the house, what I do in my community. And I'm asking myself, I hope you are hearing. I hope you too, you are hearing. I'd like us to rise. And I want us to, for a moment, I want you to think about what you've heard this morning. And I want you to make a quality decision. It's not going to be easy. Let me not deceive you. It was not easy for William Wilberforce, but he made it. It wasn't easy for Rosa Parks, but today Obama is president. It wasn't easy for Mandela, but today the white man sees the president coming and he bows to him. It wasn't easy for Mary Slessor. It wasn't easy for Ganifa. He died from lung cancer. He wasn't a smoker. He got the cancer from the prison cells. So it's not going to be easy either. But one thing we are sure of is this: God will keep us. He will preserve us. So can I ask you to speak to the Lord for a moment and make a quality decision? I'm sure that the Lord has ministered to your heart, and you have seen areas where you have fallen short. Maybe you have not used your position that God has placed you to make an impact. Thank God for your life. Thank God for the money. Thank God for the position. Thank God for the new position, the new car. They just gave you a new car. You have now been made the branch head. May I ask, what type of branch are you going to build? Will customers say that branch is a branch of integrity? Or will it be a branch just like any other branch? Who will go for Jesus? Who can Jesus trust? We're probably over 1,000 here this morning. Can he find one man that will stand for him tomorrow? In that wild, wild world of business, where the end justifies the means. Will Jesus find you faithful? Will you stand for the truth? Or would you join them to say, well, this is Nigeria,